Welcome to Distraction Approved. My name is Chris, and today I'm talking about Into the Breach. Into the Breach is a game that has been developed by the game company Subset Games. They were also the developers for a great PC game and app on the App Store called FTL, Faster Than Light. That game was a real-time strategy game where you basically controlled a spaceship that had information that was key to your faction winning this big war, and you had to try to deliver it to some of the higher ups in your faction. That game was great because you had all these different procedurally generated maps that you would follow, and you would come across people that you could help or people that you need to battle, and a heck of a game that employed the pixel art style that is very prominent in a lot of games nowadays. Subset Games seems to have really perfected that pixel art style, and I will give a retroactive Distraction Approved to the Faster Than Light game. Very good game, definitely recommend it. But moving forward, Into the Breach is a game where you play as giant mechs fighting off a large bug kaiju of sorts infestation that is threatening the earth, and there is an infinite number of timelines, and your heroes that you play that pilot these mechs are actually traveling from a timeline to this new timeline every time you play. And depending on whether or not you win, you either have a successful timeline or you have to abandon the timeline and existence is lost to the Vec in that particular timeline. This is also a strategy game in the pixel art style. I love the graphics on this thing. It is really well done. I have to give credit to Subset Games for really putting in a solid effort in creating these awesome graphics, awesome animations. The Vec bug enemies that you fight are really thought out well, and each one has their own specific attacks, and it kind of is interesting to see how they kind of correlate to how they look, and it makes for a very compelling and intriguing game when you have giant bug enemies that draw you in right off the bat. Never mind the awesome mech designs that there are in the game. You start with one set of mechs, and then as you progress through the levels, and you basically the goal of these levels is to protect a certain landmark of some kind to keep the power grid intact, so that if that power grid ever goes offline, humanity is lost. So you need to protect it, and in doing so, you are fighting off these Vec invaders. The core concept behind the gameplay is that it's turn-based, so each move, basically the Vec get to set up their attacks, then you get a chance to try and stop their attacks by either damaging them or moving them around the map. And in moving them around the map, you can actually move them so that they either hit nothing. Maybe they have to hit one of your mechs rather than one of the buildings. You sacrifice one of your own characters for the greater good. Or maybe you can even move them onto a space where there is an impending Vec breach, where basically you see a hole start to form in the ground, which means one of these Vec is going to emerge on the next turn. If you have one of these characters on that hole, then they'll actually take damage from the emerging Vec when it tries to come out, and the Vec that was trying to come out will not be able to come out because they are on top of it. So you'll be able to block one more enemy from showing up on the screen. So that's a very general, basic idea of the gameplay. Each mech has its own attacks, and as you kill the Vec and beat these battles, you gain reputation and experience points that go towards upgrading your mechs, whether it be giving them more life points, the ability to move more spaces, giving them new attacks that they can do, or passive effects that they can do. Some of my favorite ones include shielding. There's a number of different mechs that can use shields, whether to shield themselves or to shield other friendly components, whether it be mechs or buildings in the game. There's at least 8 different groups of mechs that you can pick from as you unlock them by gaining achievements. Each group of mechs has their own special set of achievements that you can then gain coins for completing. And then as you progress through the game, you can also get other loot or rewards for, say, completing a whole island without missing an objective. And you can power up your mech. And you can power up your mechs using this spent reputation after you beat a boss battle at the end of this particular island. And so I should have mentioned that the game is broken up into 4 islands and then a final fight. When you first start the game, you have 1 island, and then from there you can choose which island you want to do, and they are permanently unlocked after that. Then as you progress, many levels will offer the option of you'll see a time pod with some sort of supplies fall down, and you can collect that during the battle. And if you maintain or defeat the Vek or block them from destroying the grid in that battle, you'll be able to open that time pod, and you can either find a pilot that came from another timeline or some other supplies that could beef up your mechs and make them more powerful to complete the game. There's so many mechanics. The animation style is great for the mechs and the Vek themselves. All of the different attacks are really well thought out, and upgrading the attacks, really has some interesting consequences as you try to play through the game. And I found that I keep getting drawn back into playing the game because I want to, build these mechs up and see maybe if I upgrade this attack versus upgrading the health of the mech, I'll be able to play the game differently, or maybe I'll be able to have a perfect victory here where I wouldn't have been able to using those extra powers for something else. And as of right now, I haven't even beaten the game on a hard mode. I've only been playing on normal mode, and I've won a few, I've lost a bunch, and I'm thoroughly addicted. Just the storyline that's crafted here, the musical score that goes along with the game is brilliant. It has a weight to it when it plays at certain times during the battle. It just can amplify a battle and make it feel much more important than just a video game. And I don't know, there's something that just lives deep down in my heart. A love for giant mechs that fight fucking insects, man. Just fucking bash them. You gotta love that stuff. And I love that sort of thing. I'm a big fan of Godzilla movies, King Kong movies, those sort of things. So being able to play a game where you're fighting off these bug invaders, it gives me this feeling that I got when I saw Pacific Rim when that first came out. Pacific Rim being basically a movie version of this sort of thing that came out years ago, where it was all about these Jaegers, these large robots that fought off invading monsters. But the ability to control these mechs just really fulfills a fantasy of mine, and going out and kicking some fucking giant bug ass. I hate bugs anyway. I'm a huge fan of this game. I highly recommend it. And, this show is about being distracted and having that distraction meet an approval rating of sorts. And this game is definitely an approved distraction in my book. Like, if you need to be distracted by something to distract yourself away from everyday life, this game, Into the Breach, definitely meets those requirements. I would say distraction approved. I'm Chris, and remember to stay distracted.